Carol Bennett's hand shot out like a viper, fingers digging into the child's thin arm with enough force to leave marks. I said, "Move." The words came out sharp, laced with venom that had been brewing for years. The 12-year-old girl gasped, stumbling backward as Carol yanked her into the aisle. Passengers froze forks halfway to mouths magazines forgotten. "This isn't your seat, sweetheart. First class is for people who actually belong here." The contempt dripped from every syllable. When the girl tried to steady herself against the armrest, Carol shoved harder. The crack was audible. 2 ribs. The child's face went white breath, catching in a silent scream. Carol didn't even pause, just kept dragging her toward the back, toward economy, toward her place. Before we show you what happened next, hit that subscribe button right now. This story is going to shake you to your core, and you need to see how it ends. Drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from, because this story is going global, and we want to see how far the truth can travel. Zara Kingston had been awake since 4 in the morning. Not because she wanted to be, but because her father's driver had knocked on her bedroom door in their Chicago penthouse with the kind of gentle insistence that meant there was no negotiating. Her father, Marcus Kingston, had kissed her forehead in the dim hallway, his cologne expensive and familiar, his hug lasting 3 seconds longer than usual. "You sure you're okay flying alone, baby girl?" he'd asked for the 3rd time. "Dad, I'm 12, not 2. Zara had replied, but she'd squeezed his hand anyway because she knew what he was really asking. She knew he was thinking about Mom, about the last flight, about things neither of them talked about at breakfast. Now standing in the priority boarding line at O'Hare International, Zara clutched her backpack straps and tried not to think about the rose gold pendant hanging beneath her sweater, the pendant that used to belong to her mother, the pendant that was so much more than jewelry, though nobody looking at her would ever know that. The gate agent had smiled at her boarding pass. "First class seat 2B, lucky girl." Zara had just nodded. Luck had nothing to do with it. Her father owned a tech empire worth $8 billion. First class was just where she sat. The plane smelled like recycled air and expensive perfume. Zara found her seat, tucked her backpack under the one in front of her, and pulled out her tablet. She had 3 hours of flight time to finish her coding project for the advanced computer science class she was taking online. MIT had already sent her a recruitment letter. She was 12. She was also the only black person in first class. Zara had learned not to notice things like that, or rather she'd learned to notice them quietly, the way you notice a paper cut. Sharp, quick, then buried under the business of living. The flight attendant appeared 15 minutes later. Carol Bennett had been working for Skyline Airlines for 17 years. 17 years of smile nod, serve, repeat. 17 years of watching entitled passengers treat her like furniture. 17 years of swallowing words that tasted like battery acid. She had exactly 4 months until retirement, and she was counting every single day. When she saw the girl in 2B, something in her chest tightened. The child was small, dark-skinned, wearing a hoodie that said, "Code like a girl," across the front. Her hair was in 2 puffs, tied with purple scrunchies. She had headphones in fingers, moving across a tablet screen with the kind of focus that made Carol's jaw clench. Carol checked her passenger manifest. Seat 2B, Kingston Zara, age 12. Ticket class first. Frequent flyer status, Diamond Elite. Carol read it twice. Then she walked down the aisle, her smile tight as a wire. "Sweetheart." The word came out sugary and sharp. "Can I see your boarding pass?" Zara looked up, pulling out one earbud. Okay." She reached into her backpack, pulled out the pass, and handed it over. Carol examined it like she was looking for forgery. Her eyes flicked from the pass to Zara's face, back to the pass, back to Zara. "This says first class." "Yes, ma'am." "Did someone upgrade you?" Zara blinked. "No, my dad bought the ticket." Carol's smile didn't move, but her eyes went cold. "Honey, first-class seats are very expensive. Are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Maybe you were supposed to sit in the back?" A man across the aisle lowered his newspaper. A woman 2 rows up turned slightly, pretending not to listen. Zara felt the heat crawl up her neck. She'd been here before. Different airport, different flight, same question. Are you sure you belong? My ticket says 2B, Zara said quietly. That's this seat. Carol's nostrils flared. She leaned in closer, and Zara could smell coffee and something sour beneath it. Listen, I've been doing this job for a long time, and I know when something doesn't add up. So why don't you be a good girl and come with me to straighten this out? There's nothing to straighten out. Zara's voice was steady, but her hands had started to shake. I have a ticket. It's valid. I'm sitting in my assigned seat. The man with the newspaper folded it completely now, watching openly. A flight attendant passing by slowed, glanced at Carol, then kept walking. Carol's voice dropped to a hiss. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm not making anything hard. I'm just sitting here. That's when Carol's hand moved, fast, precise, fingers wrapping around Zara's upper arm like a claw. The grip was immediate, painful, meant to control. You need to move, now. Zara gasped, tried to pull back. Let go of me! Carol yanked, hard. Zara's body jerked forward, her tablet clattering to the floor. She tried to brace herself against the armrest, but Carol was stronger, angrier, determined. The second yank lifted Zara half out of her seat. Stop! Zara's voice cracked. You're hurting me. Nobody moved. Not the man with the newspaper, not the woman 2 rows up, not the businessman in 1A who was suddenly very interested in his phone screen. Carol dragged Zara into the aisle. The girl's sneakers scraped against the carpet, her free hand reaching for anything to hold on to. Her shoulder slammed against the seat back. Pain exploded through her ribs, white-hot and instant. Zara couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. The world tilted, and all she could think was Mom. Mom would have stopped this. Mom would have said something sharp and brilliant and made this woman shrink. But Mom was gone, and Zara was 12, and nobody was helping. Carol kept pulling, kept moving, kept smiling, that terrible customer service smile, even as Zara's face went gray with pain. They passed row 3, row 5, row 7. Passengers looked up, looked away, looked at their phones. A teenager took a video, then deleted it. An older woman shook her head, but said nothing. The complicity was a living thing, thick as the recycled air. By the time they reached row 38, Zara's vision had started to blur. Carol shoved her into the middle seat, 38D wedged between a man who smelled like onions and a teenager with music blasting so loud Zara could hear every lyric. Stay here, Carol said, her smile finally dropping. And next time, book a seat you can actually afford. Then she walked away. Zara sat, frozen arms wrapped around her ribs, breathing in short, painful gasps. The man next to her sighed loudly, annoyed at having to share his armrest. The teenager didn't even glance over. Zara counted to 10, then 20, then 50. The pain in her ribs was sharp, constant, radiating outward with every breath. She knew something was broken. She'd broken her wrist once falling off a bike. This felt worse. But worse than the pain was the shame. The knowing that 40 people had watched her get dragged through the cabin like garbage, and not one of them had said stop. Zara pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking so hard it took 3 tries to unlock it. She pulled up her father's number finger, hovering over the call button. Then she stopped. If she called him now, he'd lose his mind. He'd call the airline, demand the plane turnaround, maybe even fly to New York himself to meet her at the gate. He'd make a scene. He'd throw money and lawyers at the problem until it disappeared. But it wouldn't fix anything. It never did. Zara had spent her whole life watching her father fight battles for her, watching him write checks to private schools that still called her articulate, like it was a surprise, watching him donate wings to museums that still followed her mother through galleries like she might steal something. Money didn't fix this. Power didn't fix this. But maybe, just maybe, something else could. Zara closed her father's contact, opened her backpack, pulled out her laptop. The screen flickered to life, and there it was. The interface her mother had shown her 2 weeks before she died. The system Dr. Amara Kingston had built in secret, coded in late nights and early mornings, designed for a single purpose: to make sure the people who controlled the skies couldn't ignore the people they were supposed to protect. Skyguard AI, passenger protection protocol, biometric authorization required. Zara touched the rose gold pendant around her neck. It was warm against her skin, heavier than it looked. She pressed it against the laptop's sensor pad. The screen pulsed once, twice. Then words appeared in her mother's favorite font, the one she'd used for everything, the one that made Zara's throat close up every time she saw it. Biometric match confirmed. Welcome, Zara. Amara Kingston. Daughter override active. Awaiting command. Zara's finger hovered over the trackpad. She thought about Carol's face, the contempt, the certainty that she could treat a child like trash and walk away smiling. She thought about the passengers who'd looked away, who'd let it happen, who'd chosen comfort over courage. She thought about her mother, brilliant and bold and dead at 42, because the aviation industry had ignored her safety recommendations, because she was a black woman telling white executives they were wrong, because some systems would rather crash than listen. Zara clicked. The screen flooded with code, lines and lines of it scrolling faster than she could read. At the bottom, a single question appeared. Engage Tier 1 passenger safety. Lockdown warning. This action will initiate system-wide protocol affecting all connected aviation networks. Authorization cannot be reversed without manual override from primary user. Proceed. Zara read it 3 times. Then she typed one word. Yes. The screen went dark for 3 seconds. Then it blazed white and a single sentence appeared. SkyGuard activated. 152 airports entering ethics quarantine mode. Estimated time to full lockdown. 4 minutes, 17 seconds. Zara closed the laptop, slid it back into her backpack, wrapped her arms around her broken ribs, and waited. 4 rows ahead, a businessman's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then stood up and headed toward the bathroom. His seat back screen had frozen mid-movie. In 12C, a woman tried to check her flight's connection status. The app wouldn't load. She tried the airline's website. Error message. She tried calling customer service. Busy signal. In the cockpit, Captain Michael Torres was going through pre-flight checks when his communication system chirped. He tapped the screen. An FAA message appeared marked urgent. Attention Flight 6847, SkyGuard Passenger Protection Protocol activated. Flight flagged for ethics review. Maintain current position. Await further instruction. Torres blinked. Read it again. What the hell is SkyGuard? His co-pilot, Jenny Alvarez, was already pulling up the airline's operations manual on her tablet. She scrolled, stopped. Here, SkyGuard AI. It's some kind of experimental passenger safety system that was supposed to be implemented 5 years ago. Says here it was designed by Dr. Amara Kingston. Torres felt something cold slide down his spine. Kingston. As in Marcus. Kingston, the billionaire. His late wife, yeah. She was an aerospace engineer. Brilliant, apparently. Died in a crash 2 years ago. Alvarez kept reading her face, going pale. Mike. This system was never supposed to go live. It says here it requires biometric authorization from the primary architect or designated family member. So how the hell did it activate? Alvarez looked up, and for the first time in 10 years of flying together, Torres saw fear in her eyes. It says the activation source is this flight, seat 38D. They both turned to look at the cabin door. At JFK, the priority check-in system went dark. 1 second, gate agents were printing boarding passes and scanning IDs. The next, every screen displayed the same message. SkyGuard Ethics, lockdown active. First class and priority services, suspended pending investigation. Economy and safety operations, unaffected. A gate agent named Donna Martinez stared at her screen, then at the line of angry business travelers in front of her. I'm sorry, sir, the system just crashed. Uncrash it, a man in a suit snapped. I can't. It's not responding to any commands. And behind her, her supervisor was on the phone, voice rising. What do you mean it's locked? Who locked it? What the hell is Skyguard? At LAX, the same thing. At O'Hare, at Dallas-Fort Worth, at Heathrow, Charles de Gaulle, Dubai, International Singapore, Changi. 152 airports, every major hub in the connected aviation network, every single one of them losing access to their premium passenger systems simultaneously. The economy check-in counters kept working. The safety systems stayed online. The air traffic control towers functioned perfectly. But first-class, business-class priority boarding, elite lounges. Dead. At Skyline Airlines headquarters in Atlanta, CEO Richard Vance was in the middle of a board meeting when his assistant burst through the door, face white as paper. "Sir, we have a situation." Vance didn't look up from his presentation. "Unless the building's on fire, it can wait. Our entire first-class network just went offline, not just us. Every airline connected to the Global Aviation Alliance, 152 airports, all at once." The room went silent. Vance slowly set down his laser pointer. "What did you just say?" "Someone activated Skyguard, sir. The system Dr. Kingston designed. The one we rejected." Vance's face went purple. "That system was never built. We scrapped it." "Apparently we didn't, and whoever activated it has Tier 1 override authority. We can't shut it down remotely. We can't bypass it. We're locked out." A board member leaned forward. "How much money are we losing every minute this is active?" The assistant checked her tablet. "Approximately $2.3 million per minute across all affected airlines." Someone swore. Someone else reached for their phone. Vance just stood there, his mind racing through possibilities through legal teams and PR strategies and insurance clauses. Then he asked the only question that mattered. Who activated it? The assistant hesitated. "According to the FAA trace, the activation source is Flight 6847, currently on the tarmac at O'Hare. Seat 38D, passenger name Zara Kingston." The room went so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum. "Kingston," Vance repeated slowly, "as in Marcus Kingston's daughter, Amara Kingston's daughter." "Yes, sir." Vance sat down heavily. "She's 12 years old." "Yes, sir." "And she just shut down the entire global aviation industry's premium services." "Yes, sir." Vance closed his eyes, opened them, looked at his board, his executives, his billion-dollar empire currently hemorrhaging money by the second. "Get me Marcus Kingston on the phone. Now." Back on Flight 6847, Carol Bennett was in the galley pouring herself a cup of coffee and complaining to another flight attendant. "I swear these kids today think they can sit anywhere they want. No respect for the system." The other attendant, Maria, was younger, newer, less certain. "Carol, didn't that girl have a first-class ticket?" "Please, probably an error in the booking system, or her parents used miles or something. Either way, she didn't belong up there. You could tell just by looking at her." Maria opened her mouth, closed it. She'd been with the airline for 6 months and had already learned that challenging Carol Bennett was a fast track to miserable shifts and passenger complaint duty. The intercom crackled. "Flight attendant Bennett to the cockpit, immediately." Carol rolled her eyes. Probably some passenger whining about the delay. She handed Maria her coffee. "Don't drink this. I'll be right back." She walked to the cockpit, knocked twice, waited for the door to unlock. Captain Torres looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Close the door," he said. Carol did. "What's going on? Are we delayed?" Torres turned his screen toward her. "Do you recognize this name, Zara Kingston, seat 38D? Carol's stomach dropped just a little. "Yeah, why? Where was she originally seated?" "I don't know. She was in first class when I found her. But her ticket must have been wrong because—" "Her ticket was correct," Torres interrupted. "First class seat 2B, purchased at full price by Marcus Kingston 4 days ago. So why is she in 38D? Carol felt heat crawl up her neck. "Look, I made a judgment call. The seat was needed for an actual premium passenger. There were 3 empty seats in first class. She just didn't fit the profile." Torres stared at her. "The profile? You know what I mean." "No, Carol, I really don't. Explain it to me." Carol's hands clenched. "She's a child. She was wearing a hoodie. She didn't look like she belonged there." Didn't look like, Torres repeated slowly. Did you ask for her boarding pass? Yes. And it was valid. Carol said nothing. Answer the question. It was technically valid, but did you physically remove her from her seat? The silence stretched. Torres leaned forward. Carol, I need you to listen very carefully. That girl you moved her mother was Dr. Amara Kingston, the aerospace engineer who designed Skyguard AI. Her father is Marcus Kingston, who owns half the tech infrastructure in this country. And about 10 minutes ago, that 12-year-old girl activated a passenger protection system that has locked down every premium service at 152 airports worldwide. Carol's face went white. The FAA is demanding answers. The CEO is demanding answers. And in about 5 minutes, federal investigators are going to board this plane and demand answers. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you physically remove Zara Kingston from her assigned first-class seat? Carol's mouth opened, closed. I was doing my job. Your job is to verify tickets and ensure passenger safety, not to racially profile children. I never said anything about race. You didn't have to. Torres's voice was ice. Your actions said it for you. The intercom crackled again. This time it was air traffic control. Flight 6847, you are ordered to remain at the gate. Federal investigators are en route. No passengers are to deplane until clearance is given. Torres acknowledged the order, then turned back to Carol. You're suspended effective immediately. Badge and credentials. Now. Carol's hands shook as she unclipped her badge. This is insane. She's just some kid who threw a tantrum. She didn't throw anything, Torres said quietly. She activated a system her mother built to protect passengers from people exactly like you. Now get out of my cockpit. In seat 38D, Zara's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. We know what you did. We know why. We're listening now. Zara deleted it without responding. Then she opened her laptop one more time, pulled up the Skyguard interface, and began typing a message. A message that would be delivered to every airport director, every airline CEO, every federal aviation official currently scrambling to understand what was happening. The message was simple. 5 sentences. No negotiation. To restore Skyguard systems, the following conditions must be met. 1 public admission of discriminatory practices, 2 mandatory bias training for all flight crew with independent oversight, 3 real-time passenger complaint system with Federal Review Board, 4 financial compensation to all documented victims of airline discrimination in the past 5 years, 5 criminal investigation into the crew member who assaulted me on Flight 6847, non-negotiable. You have 24 hours. She hit send. Then Zara Kingston, age 12, broken ribs, throbbing with every breath, closed her laptop and waited for the world to respond. The message hit inboxes at exactly 10:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every airline CEO, every airport director, every federal aviation official connected to the Global Aviation Alliance network, 152 simultaneous notifications, all containing the same 5 demands from a 12-year-old girl sitting in seat 38D with broken ribs and a quantum encryption key her dead mother had given her. Richard Vance read it 3 times before his hands started shaking. She can't be serious, he said to nobody in particular. His assistant stood in the corner of his office tablet, clutched to her chest like a shield. She's 12 years old. She doesn't have the authority to make demands like this. Sir, she has the authority to keep every premium service in our network offline indefinitely. Legal says the Sinclair Protocol, the system her mother designed, it's ironclad. Doctor. Kingston embedded it so deep into the aviation infrastructure that removing it would require rebuilding our entire network from scratch. Cost estimate is somewhere around $40 billion across all carriers. Vance's phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, but answered anyway, because at this point, every call mattered. This is Vance. The voice on the other end was calm, measured, and absolutely terrifying in its composure. Mr. Vance, this is Marcus Kingston. I believe you're currently holding my daughter hostage on one of your aircraft. Vance's throat went dry. Mr. Kingston, I can assure you that your daughter is perfectly safe. We're simply trying to understand the situation, and the situation is simple. Your flight attendant assaulted my child, broke 2 of her ribs, dragged her through your cabin like she was trash while 40 passengers watched and did nothing. Then, Zara did what I taught her to do. She used the tools her mother left her to make sure it never happens again. Mr. Kingston, I understand you're upset, but shutting down global aviation networks is exactly what needs to happen. Marcus's voice didn't rise, but the steel in it cut through the phone line like a blade. You people have been discriminating against passengers who look like my daughter for decades. My wife spent 5 years trying to get you to implement basic dignity protocols. You laughed her out of boardrooms, called her ideas radical, told her the market would sort itself out. Well, congratulations, the market just sorted itself out. We can discuss reforms, but this kind of action is... Read her demands, Mr. Vance. You have 24 hours. After that, every minute you stay offline costs your industry $2.3 million. Do the math. The line went dead. Vance stared at his phone, then at his assistant. Get our legal team on a conference call. Get PR, get operations. And somebody find out if we can override this system without Kingston's permission. Sir, we've tried. The system is locked behind biometric authorization. Only Zara Kingston can deactivate it. Then get me on a plane to Chicago, now. At O'Hare, the tarmac had become a war zone of flashing lights and federal vehicles. FBI, FAA, TSA, Department of Transportation. Every agency with an acronym had sent representatives, and they were all standing around Flight 6847 like it was a bomb waiting to detonate. Agent Victoria Chen, FBI Cyber Crimes Division, stood at the base of the jet bridge reviewing the case file on her tablet. 12 years old, genius-level IQ, daughter of Dr. Amara Kingston, the aerospace engineer whose safety recommendations had been ignored by every major carrier, daughter of Marcus Kingston, the tech billionaire who could buy and sell most of the people currently panicking about this situation. "What's your assessment?" her partner asked. Agent David Park was older, calmer, less impressed by money and power. "My assessment is that this kid just executed the most sophisticated act of civil disobedience in aviation history, and she did it without breaking a single law. How is shutting down airports not illegal?" Chen smiled grimly. Because her mother built Skyguard with full FAA approval 7 years ago. It was designed as a passenger protection system with override capabilities in case of systemic safety failures. The FAA certified it. The airlines just never implemented it because it would have cost them money and forced them to change their policies. Dr. Kingston embedded biometric authorization protocols, designated her daughter as a secondary user, and created a legal framework that allows the system to activate in response to documented passenger rights violations. So the girl's claim of assault triggers the system. Not just triggers it, legally justifies it. We've already reviewed the cabin footage. Flight attendant Carol Bennett physically removed Zara Kingston from her assigned seat, used excessive force, caused bodily harm to a minor, and did so without valid cause. That's assault. That's discrimination. That's exactly the kind of incident Skyguard was designed to prevent. Park whistled low. So we can't arrest her. We can't even question her without her father and a lawyer present. And given that she's currently holding the entire aviation industry hostage with a legal system her mother designed, I'm guessing her lawyers are very, very good. Inside the plane, passengers were getting restless. They'd been sitting on the tarmac for 90 minutes. No explanation, no updates, just constant announcements to remain seated and stay calm. In seat 12A, a businessman named Robert Chen was on his 4th angry call to his office. "I don't care what the holdup is. Tell them I'm on a plane that's being held because some kid hacked the airline. No, I don't know the details. Just reschedule the meeting." 2 rows back, a woman named Patricia Okonkwo was watching the window, watching the federal vehicles multiply on the tarmac. She'd been in first-class seat 4C when Carol had dragged that little girl down the aisle. She'd watched it happen. She'd said nothing. Now her stomach churned with something that felt uncomfortably like guilt. In 38D, Zara sat perfectly still. The man next to her had finally noticed the federal activity outside and was muttering nervously. The teenager on her other side was oblivious, headphones still blasting. Zara's ribs screamed with every breath, but she didn't move, didn't flinch, just kept her laptop closed and her hands folded and waited. Her phone buzzed. A text from her father. "Baby girl, are you okay? Don't answer any questions without me there. I'm on my way." Zara typed back with shaking fingers. "I'm okay, Dad. I did what Mom would have done." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "I know. I'm so proud of you. And so scared for you. Hold tight." The cockpit door opened. Captain Torres emerged, his face gray. He walked directly to row 38, and every passenger in the surrounding seats suddenly found somewhere else to look. "Zara Kingston." Zara looked up. "Yes, sir." Torres crouched in the aisle so they were eye level. His voice was gentle. "Federal agents need to speak with you. Your father is on his way, but they're asking if you're willing to answer a few questions while we wait. You have every right to say no." Zara's mind raced. Every true crime podcast she'd ever listened to said, "Don't talk to cops without a lawyer." But every instinct her mother had trained into her said, "Use this moment." "I'll talk to them," she said quietly. "But only if Carol Bennett is in the room too." Torres blinked. "The flight attendant who moved you." "Yes, sir. If they want my side of the story, they should hear hers at the same time." Something flickered across Torres's face. Respect, maybe. Or recognition that this child was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. "I'll relay that to the agents." 5 minutes later, they'd set up a makeshift interview room in the first-class cabin. The seats had been cleared. Agent Chen sat in 1A. Agent Park stood near the galley. Carol Bennett sat in 2B, her face pale and furious. And Zara Kingston sat in 2A, the seat she'd been dragged out of 90 minutes ago, her laptop bag at her feet, and her mother's pendant warm against her chest. Chen started the recording on her phone. "This is Agent Victoria Chen, FBI Cybercrimes Division, conducting a preliminary interview regarding Skyguard activation incident Alpha 047. Present are Zara Kingston, minor, age 12, and Carol Bennett, Skyline Airlines flight attendant. Miss Kingston, you've agreed to this interview voluntarily." "Yes, ma'am." "And you understand you have the right to remain silent and request an attorney." "Yes, ma'am, but I don't need an attorney because I didn't do anything illegal." Chen's lips twitched. "Can you describe what happened before you activated Skyguard?" Zara looked directly at Carol. "Ms. Bennett told me I couldn't sit in my assigned seat. When I showed her my boarding pass, she said I didn't look like I belonged in first class. When I refused to move, she grabbed my arm and pulled me out of the seat. I fell against the armrest and broke 2 ribs. She dragged me to the back of the plane while everyone watched. Nobody helped me. Nobody said anything." Carol's face flushed red. "That's not what happened. She's lying." "There's video," Chen said mildly. "Multiple passengers recorded the incident. We've already reviewed it. Your account matches the footage, Zara." Carol stood up fast enough that her chair rocked. "This is insane. I was doing my job." "First class is for elite passengers, people who've earned status, not some kid who probably got bumped up because what?" Zara's voice was soft, but it cut through Carol's rant like wire. "Because I'm black, because I don't look rich enough, because you decided I didn't belong. I never said anything about race. You didn't have to." Zara's hands were steady now, all trace of fear gone. "You looked at me and made a decision. Same decision people make about my dad when he walks into a store. Same decision they made about my mom when she was alive, when she'd walk into boardrooms full of white executives and they'd ask if she was there to take notes. You saw a black girl in a hoodie and decided I was a problem to solve." Carol opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "That's not fair. Neither is breaking a 12-year-old's ribs because you don't think she deserves her seat." Chen cleared her throat. "Ms. Bennett, can you explain why you removed Zara from seat 2B? Carol's hands clenched. "The seat looked empty when I did my initial check. When I came back and saw her there, I assumed there had been a mistake. First-class seats are expensive. Kids don't usually sit there alone." "Did you verify her ticket before removing her?" Silence. "Ms. Bennett." I glanced at it. And it was valid. Technically. Technically means yes, Park interjected. So you saw a valid ticket and still forced her to move. Carol's voice rose. She didn't fit the profile. First class is for business travelers, executives, people who've earned premium status, not children. Zara Kingston is a Diamond Elite member, Chen said, reading from her tablet. Frequent flyer number registered in her name. Over 200,000 miles flown in the past year. Her status is higher than yours. The color drained from Carol's face. So, let me get this straight, Chen continued. You physically removed a premium status passenger from her assigned seat, caused bodily harm to a minor, and violated company policy on passenger rights. Is that accurate? Carol said nothing. Zara spoke up. Can I ask Ms. Bennett a question? Chen nodded. How many other passengers have you moved because you didn't think they belonged in first class? Carol's jaw tightened. I don't have to answer that. The airline's complaint database does, Park said, pulling out his phone. 14 complaints filed against Carol Bennett in the past 3 years. 10 of them from passengers of color. 7 specifically mention being questioned about their tickets or asked to move seats. None of the complaints were investigated. All of them were dismissed as misunderstandings. The number hung in the air like smoke. Chen leaned forward. Ms. Bennett, I'm going to ask you directly. Have you engaged in a pattern of discriminatory behavior against passengers based on race? I want a lawyer, Carol said finally. That's your right. Chen stopped the recording. But understand this. The FBI will be conducting a full investigation. The FAA will review every flight you've worked for the past 5 years. The Department of Justice is already building a civil rights case, and every passenger you've ever mistreated now has legal grounds to file suit. You should get a very good lawyer. Carol stood on shaking legs. This is because of her. She's the one who shut down the airports. She's the criminal here. Zara met her eyes. I'm not a criminal, Ms. Bennett. I'm the daughter of a woman who tried to protect passengers like me and was ignored. I'm using a legal system my mother built because people like you made it necessary, and I'm not going to apologize for that. Chen gestured to a TSA agent waiting by the door. Ms. Bennett, you're being placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Your badge and credentials, please. Carol fumbled with her badge hands, shaking so badly it took 3 tries to unclip it. She dropped it into Chen's hand, then looked at Zara one last time. You'll regret this, she said, her voice venomous. You just made yourself a target. I was already a target, Zara replied. I was a target the second I walked onto this plane looking like me. At least now everyone can see it. They escorted Carol off the plane. Through the window, Zara watched her walk across the tarmac, surrounded by agents, her career over her life, about to become very complicated. Zara didn't feel triumph, just tired. Chen sat down in the seat across from her. That took courage. My mom always said courage is just fear with a plan. Smart woman. The smartest. Zara's voice cracked slightly. She died because the airlines ignored her safety recommendations. The crash that killed her, it could have been prevented if they'd implemented her protocols. But it was cheaper to pay settlements than fix the system. So she died, and 47 other people died, and the airlines sent flowers to the funerals and changed nothing. Chen was quiet for a moment. Is that why you activated Skyguard Revenge? No. Zara looked at her steadily. I activated it because my mom built a system to protect people, and I'm the only one who can make sure it works. This isn't about revenge. It's about making sure what happened to her, what happened to me, doesn't keep happening to other people. You know the airlines are going to fight your demands. Let them. Every minute they fight costs them millions of dollars. Eventually math wins. Chen smiled despite herself. How old are you again? 12, but I'm very mature for my age. The corner of Zara's mouth twitched. That's what adults always say when they want me to act older than I am. Usually right before they decide I'm too young to have an opinion. I don't think anyone's going to make that mistake with you again. The plane door opened. Marcus Kingston strode in like a thunderstorm in a tailored suit, followed by 3 lawyers carrying enough briefcases to arm a small military. He zeroed in on Zara, and his face crumpled. Baby girl. Zara stood, and the careful composure she'd maintained for the past 2 hours shattered. She walked into her father's arms and finally let herself cry. Every sob sent fire through her broken ribs, but she didn't care. Her dad was here. She wasn't alone anymore. Marcus held her carefully, one hand cupping the back of her head. Over Zara's shoulder, his eyes found Agent Chen, and the look in them was pure steel. Who hurt my daughter? Flight attendant Carol Bennett. She's been removed from the aircraft and is facing multiple charges. Good. Who let it happen? Chen hesitated. Sir. Marcus's voice was quiet, deadly. 40 passengers watched my daughter get assaulted and said nothing. I want their names. All of them. Mr. Kingston, I understand you're angry, but I'm not angry, Agent Chen. I'm precise. My daughter activated a legal system to address systemic discrimination. I'm going to make sure everyone who enabled that discrimination understands the consequences. One of the lawyers stepped forward. We'll be filing individual civil suits against every passenger who witnessed the assault and failed to intervene. Bystander liability is well established in cases involving harm to minors. In Seat 12A, Robert Chen's phone call abruptly stopped mid-sentence. In 14C, Patricia Okonkwo felt her blood run cold. All around the first-class cabin, passengers who'd been complaining about delays suddenly realized they'd become defendants. Park whistled low. That's going to be expensive. Good, Marcus said. Maybe next time they'll say something. Chen stood. Mr. Kingston, we need to discuss your daughter's demands. The airlines are pushing back hard. They're claiming Skyguard activation constitutes economic terrorism. Marcus laughed, sharp and humorless. Economic terrorism. That's rich. Did they use that term when they ignored my wife's safety protocols and killed her? Did they call it terrorism when they paid millions to silence families of crash victims instead of fixing their systems? My daughter activated a legal passenger protection system in response to a documented assault. If that terrifies them, perhaps they should examine why. His phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened further. Excuse me, I need to take this. He stepped into the galley, and Zara could hear his voice through the thin partition. This is Marcus Kingston. No, I will not ask my daughter to deactivate Skyguard. She has 5 very reasonable demands, and your industry has 24 hours to meet them. After that, you can explain to your shareholders why premium services are offline indefinitely, because you refuse to stop discriminating against children. A pause. I don't care about your profit margins. I care about my 12-year-old daughter who is currently sitting on your aircraft with broken ribs because your employee decided she didn't look wealthy enough for first class. Another pause, longer this time. You want to negotiate? Fine. Here's my negotiation. Meet every single one of Zara's demands within 24 hours, or I start buying airlines. I have $80 billion and a very personal grudge. Test me. He hung up, came back to Zara. How are you holding up, baby girl? My ribs hurt, but I'm okay. We're getting you to a hospital. Right now. Dad, the investigation can wait. You're hurt. That comes first. Chen nodded. We have enough for now. Zara, if you need anything, here's my card. You did the right thing today. Marcus took the card, examined it, handed it to one of his lawyers. We'll be in touch. Now, if you'll excuse us, my daughter needs medical attention. They walked off the plane together, Marcus's arm around Zara's shoulders, lawyers forming a protective wall around them. Camera flashes erupted as they emerged onto the jet bridge. News crews had somehow gotten past security. Reporters shouted questions. Zara, why did you shut down the airports? Mr. Kingston, is this about your wife's death? Zara, what message are you trying to send? Marcus kept walking, but Zara stopped. She looked at the cameras, at the reporters, at the millions of people who would watch this clip. My message is simple, she said, her voice steady despite the pain. If you see someone being hurt and you do nothing, you're part of the problem. I shut down the airports because my mom built a system to protect people like me, and I'm tired of watching adults ignore it. If you want your first-class services back, stop treating passengers like they don't deserve dignity. A reporter pushed forward. What about the economic impact you're costing airlines millions? They cost my mom her life. They cost me my ribs. They've cost thousands of passengers their dignity. I think they can afford to lose some money while they figure out how to treat people with basic respect." Marcus gently tugged her forward. "That's enough. My daughter needs medical care, not an interview." But the damage was done. The clip was already going viral. Within an hour, it would have 10 million views. Within 3 hours, it would be the top trending topic on every social media platform. And in airports across the country, passengers stuck in economy started asking questions, started looking at the empty first-class cabins, started wondering why premium services were down, but basic operations continued perfectly, started realizing that maybe the system had always been broken, and maybe a 12-year-old girl with her mother's coding skills was the only one brave enough to break it properly. The emergency room at Northwestern Memorial Hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Zara sat on the examination table, her father's hand wrapped around hers, while a doctor named Sarah Patel carefully pressed fingers against her ribcage. Each touch sent lightning through Zara's chest, but she didn't make a sound. She'd learned a long time ago that showing pain only made adults ask questions she didn't want to answer. "2 fractured ribs," Dr. Patel said, finally pulling off her gloves. "Possibly 3. We'll need x-rays to confirm, but based on the bruising pattern, this was caused by blunt force trauma." "Zara, can you tell me exactly how this happened?" Marcus's grip tightened. "A flight attendant assaulted her." Dr. Patel's eyes widened. "I need to file a child abuse report." "Already done," one of Marcus's lawyers said from the corner. "FBI has the case. We have video evidence." "Good." Dr. Patel looked at Zara with something that might have been admiration. "You're the girl from the news, the one who shut down the airports." Zara nodded, not trusting her voice. "My sister's a pilot for United. She called me an hour ago, furious about the delays. Then I saw your interview." Dr. Patel paused. "I told her she should be thanking you. Last month, a gate agent made her prove she was actually a pilot because apparently brown women can't fly planes. Your mom would be proud." Zara's throat closed up. "You knew my mom." "I met her once at a medical conference. She was presenting on aviation safety protocols. Brilliant woman. Terrifying in the best way." Dr. Patel smiled sadly. "I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry it took breaking your ribs to make people listen." The x-rays confirmed 3 fractures. Dr. Patel wrapped Zara's torso prescribed pain medication and gave Marcus a look that said take care of her before disappearing to file paperwork. Marcus carried Zara to the car himself, refusing to let her walk his face a mask of controlled fury. In the back seat of the town car, Zara's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Friend requests from strangers, news alerts with her name in the headlines. She turned it off and leaned against her father's shoulder. "Dad." "Yeah, baby girl." "Am I in trouble?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "No, you're not in trouble. But a lot of other people are about to be." At Skyline Airlines headquarters, the emergency board meeting had been going for 3 hours and nobody had slept. Richard Vance stood at the head of the conference table. His tie loosened his shirt, wrinkled his eyes, bloodshot. Around him, 15 executives argued in overlapping voices about liability and optics and quarterly projections. "We cannot give in to this," Gerald Morrison from legal insisted. "If we admit fault, we're opening ourselves up to billions in lawsuits. Every passenger who's ever felt discriminated against will sue." "They're going to sue anyway," Amanda Reeves from PR shot back. "Have you seen social media? We're being eviscerated. There are protests forming at JFK, LaGuardia, LAX. Passengers are refusing to fly with us until we meet the girls' demands." "Then we wait them out," Morrison said. "Eventually the system will have to reset. Technology fails. It always does." Vance's phone rang. He glanced at it, felt his stomach drop. "It's the Secretary of Transportation." The room went silent. Vance answered. "Mr. Secretary." Mr. Vance, I'll make this simple. The president is getting hourly briefings on this situation. The economic impact is approaching $2 billion. International allies are demanding answers. And you're telling me a 12-year-old girl has more control over American aviation infrastructure than the federal government. We're working on a solution. Your solution better involve meeting her demands. All of them. Because if you don't, I'm going to invoke emergency executive authority and force compliance. Do you understand me? Sir, with respect, we have legal concerns about... I don't care about your legal concerns. I care about restoring service and doing what should have been done years ago. You have 12 hours. After that, this becomes a federal mandate, and you lose any ability to negotiate terms. The girl's being generous. Don't waste it. The line went dead. Vance set down his phone very carefully. The Secretary of Transportation just gave us 12 hours to comply or face federal intervention. Morrison went pale. He can't do that. He absolutely can, Reeves said. Emergency Powers Act. Post-9/11 provisions allow the executive branch to take control of aviation networks during national security threats, and right now grounded premium services at 152 airports qualifies. Vance looked around the table. Show of hands. Who votes we comply with Zara Kingston's demands? 11 hands went up. 4 stayed down, including Morrison's. The ayes have it, Vance said heavily. Draft a statement. We admit fault. We implement the reforms, and we pray this doesn't destroy us. At 11:47 p.m., Skyline Airlines released a statement that would be taught in business ethics classes for decades. We failed. We failed Zara Kingston. We failed her mother, Dr. Amara Kingston, whose safety innovations we dismissed. We failed every passenger who has experienced discrimination, profiling, or disrespect while flying with us. Flight attendant Carol Bennett's actions were inexcusable, but they were symptomatic of a larger cultural problem within our organization. We have tolerated bias. We have ignored complaints. We have prioritized profit over people. That ends tonight. Effective immediately. Skyline Airlines commits to the following comprehensive bias training for all employees with independent oversight, real-time passenger complaint systems reviewed by federal authorities, financial compensation for documented victims of discrimination, full cooperation with criminal investigations into this incident, and zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior. We cannot undo the harm we have caused, but we can choose to do better. We are choosing better. Thank you, Zara, for forcing us to see what we should have seen years ago. Within 20 minutes, Delta released a similar statement. Then United, then American, then every carrier connected to the Global Aviation Alliance network. The dominoes fell fast because none of them wanted to be last. None of them wanted to be the airline that chose profits over principles when a child was watching. At midnight, Zara's phone buzzed with a notification. She was curled up in her bed at home, ribs wrapped tight pain medication making her thoughts fuzzy. She almost didn't check it, but something made her reach for the phone. It was an email from Agent Victoria Chen. Zara Skyguard just deactivated. Premium services are coming back online. The airlines met your demands. All of them. You did it. Sleep well. You earned it. Zara read it twice, then texted her father in the next room. They said yes. 3 seconds later, Marcus appeared in her doorway. They agreed to everything. Everything. He sat on the edge of her bed, careful not to jostle her ribs. How do you feel? Tired and scared, and like Mom's watching. She is, and she's so damn proud. Marcus's voice cracked. I'm proud and terrified, and trying very hard not to think about the fact that my 12-year-old daughter just brought the aviation industry to its knees. Did I do the right thing? Baby girl, you did the only thing, the brave thing, the thing your mother would have done. He kissed her forehead. Now sleep. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. Complicated was an understatement. By morning, Zara's story had gone international. BBC ran a feature. Al Jazeera interviewed civil rights leaders. Tokyo news stations debated American discrimination, and in airport terminals across the country, passengers returning to normal service found something new: QR codes posted at every gate linking to the real-time complaint system Zara had demanded. Every passenger could now report discrimination instantly, and every report would be reviewed by federal oversight. The system went live at 6:00 a.m. Eastern. By 6:47 a.m., it had received 4,000 complaints. By noon, 12,000. Every ignored slight, every suspicious glance, every time someone had been asked to prove they belonged, all of it documented, all of it visible. The aviation industry was getting an education it should have gotten decades ago, and Zara Kingston was the professor. But not everyone was grateful. At Carol Bennett's apartment in suburban Atlanta, her phone rang at 7 in the morning. She answered without checking the caller ID, assuming it was her lawyer. Carol Bennett. Yes. This is Sandra Oaks from Channel 5 News. We'd like to get your side of the story regarding the Zara Kingston incident. Carol's blood ran cold. No comment. Ms. Bennett, federal charges have been filed against you. Assault of a minor, violation of civil rights. The FBI is investigating your employment history. Don't you want to defend yourself? I said no comment. Sources say you have a history of discriminatory behavior, 14 complaints in 3 years. Is that accurate? Carol hung up. Her hands were shaking. She'd been a flight attendant for 17 years. 17 years of serving passengers and following rules and doing her job. Now she was a criminal, a racist, a headline. Her doorbell rang. She looked through the peephole and saw 2 men in suits holding badges. FBI. She didn't open the door. They knocked again. Ms. Bennett, we have a warrant for your arrest. Please open the door. Carol backed away from the door, her heart hammering. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. She'd just been doing her job. The girl had looked out of place. That wasn't racism that was protocol. That was standards that was. The door crashed open. The agents came in with weapons-drawn voices, loud and commanding. Carol dropped to her knees, hands up, sobbing, still not understanding how a 12-year-old girl had destroyed her entire life in less than 24 hours. But Zara understood. Zara understood that systems don't change because you ask nicely. They change because someone makes them change. Because someone refuses to accept that this is just how things are. 3 days after the airports reopened, Zara received a letter, handwritten, expensive stationery, postmarked from Washington, D.C. Dear Zara, my name is Patricia Okonkwo. I was in seat 4C on flight 6847. I watched that flight attendant hurt you. I said nothing. I did nothing. For 3 days I have been unable to sleep, unable to eat, unable to look at my own children without feeling sick. I am a coward. I am part of the problem. I am writing to tell you that I have filed a formal statement with the FBI detailing everything I witnessed. I have joined the class action lawsuit against the airline. And I have donated $50,000 to the Amara Kingston Aviation Equity Fund in your mother's name. It is not enough. Nothing will ever be enough. But it is what I can do. You showed me what courage looks like. Thank you. And I am so, so sorry. Patricia Okonkwo. Zara read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. She showed it to her father, who read it once and had to leave the room. When he came back, his eyes were red. There are going to be more letters like this, he said quietly. People who stayed silent are going to want forgiveness. Should I forgive them? That's not my decision, baby girl. It's yours. Zara thought about her mother, about the journal entries she'd found after Mom died, entries where Dr. Amara Kingston wrote about the executives who'd dismissed her ideas, the colleagues who'd stolen credit for her work, the system that had chewed her up and spit her out until a plane crash finally silenced her permanently. Mom had never gotten her apology, never gotten her justice, never gotten to see the world change. But Zara could. I want to meet her, Zara said. Ms. Okonkwo, I want to meet everyone who's written to apologize. I want to look them in the eye. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, we'll arrange it. 2 weeks later, they held a gathering at a hotel conference room in Chicago. 23 passengers from Flight 6847 who had witnessed the assault showed up. Some brought lawyers, some brought guilt. All of them brought shame. Zara sat at the front of the room, her ribs still tender, her face calm. Marcus stood beside her like a sentinel. The passengers filed in and took seats, and the room felt like a courtroom, a confessional, a reckoning. Patricia Okonkwo spoke first. She was elegant, well-dressed, and shaking. I watched you get hurt, and I told myself it wasn't my business. I told myself maybe the flight attendant knew something I didn't. I told myself staying quiet was safer. I chose comfort over courage, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. A man in his 50s stood next. Robert Chen, the businessman from 12A. I was on the phone. I barely looked up. When I finally noticed what was happening, you were already in the back. I told myself it was too late to help. But the truth is, I didn't want to get involved. I didn't want to make things awkward. I prioritized my own convenience over your safety. I'm ashamed. One by one they spoke. Some cried. Some couldn't meet Zara's eyes. Some tried to explain and then realized there was no explanation that mattered. When they were done, Zara stood. Pain shot through her ribs, but she ignored it. I'm not here to forgive you, she said quietly. That's not why we're here. We're here because what happened on that plane happens every day. To people who look like me. To people who don't have a mom who built a shutdown system into the aviation network. Most of them suffer alone. They file complaints that get ignored. They tell their stories and nobody listens. They learn to make themselves smaller so they don't get hurt again. She paused, letting the words settle. But I had a choice. I could shrink or I could fight. I chose to fight because my mom taught me that silence protects the system, not the people the system hurts. You all chose silence. You protected the system, and a 12-year-old girl paid the price. Patricia Okonkwo covered her face with her hands. But here's the thing, Zara continued. You're here now. You're speaking up now. You're facing what you did. That matters. It doesn't undo the harm, but it matters. The question is, what are you going to do next time? Because there will be a next time. Someone will be mistreated. Someone will need help. And you'll have a choice again. Choose better. She sat down. The room was silent except for the sound of grown adults trying not to sob. Marcus put his hand on Zara's shoulder. My daughter has more grace than most adults I know. Don't waste it. The meeting ended quietly. People approached Zara one by one, shook her hand, thanked her, apologized again. Some offered money, some offered connections, some just offered tears. When they were gone, Marcus looked at his daughter. How do you feel? Like Mom, Zara said. Like I'm doing what she would have done. You're doing better than what she would have done. You're giving people a chance to change. Do you think they will? Marcus considered. Some will. Some won't, but you gave them the choice. That's all we can do. 6 weeks after the incident, the Senate Committee on Aviation Ethics held hearings. Zara was invited to testify. She sat in a chamber full of senators and cameras and people who held the power to change laws, and she told them everything. Not with anger, not with vengeance, just with truth. Senator Patricia Nguyen from California asked the question everyone was thinking. Zara, you're 12 years old. You shut down global aviation networks. You forced billion-dollar corporations to change their policies. You became the youngest civil rights activist in modern history. How does that feel? Zara thought about it, about her broken ribs and her dead mother and her father, who'd spent 2 years trying to fill a hole that couldn't be filled. She thought about Carol Bennett in federal prison and the passengers who'd apologized and the thousands of complaints pouring into the new system every day. It feels like I had to break something to fix it, she said finally. And that shouldn't be necessary, but it was, so I did. Do you have any regrets? I regret that it took getting hurt for people to listen. I regret that my mom died trying to make these same changes and nobody cared until her daughter made them expensive. I regret that I live in a world where a 12-year-old black girl has to shut down airports to get adults to treat people with dignity. The room was completely still. But I don't regret activating SkyGuard, Zara continued, because my mom built that system to protect people, and if I hadn't used it, Carol Bennett would still be working. Those passengers would still be ignoring problems, and the next kid who looked like me would get dragged out of their seat while everyone watched. I couldn't let that happen. Senator Nguyen nodded slowly. Thank you, Zara. You've taught us all something important about courage. I learned it from my mom, Zara said softly. She was the bravest person I knew. I just finished what she started. The hearing ended. Legislation was drafted. The Amara-Kingston Aviation Dignity Act passed with bipartisan support, mandating the reforms Zara had demanded and adding federal penalties for airlines that failed to comply. It was signed into law on what would have been Dr. Amara-Kingston's 44th birthday. Zara was there at the signing ceremony wearing her mother's lab coat and her father's strength. The president handed her the pen he'd used to sign the bill. Your mother would be proud, he said. I know, Zara replied. She's watching. That night, Zara opened her laptop one final time. The SkyGuard interface appeared, and this time there was a new message. An automatic notification triggered by the bill's passage. Aviation dignity protocols now federally mandated. SkyGuard Tier 1 authorization no longer required. System transferred to federal oversight. Dr. Amara Kingston's vision complete. Thank you, Zara. Below it, one last line. Written in her mother's handwriting embedded in the code years ago. I knew you'd finish this, baby girl. You're stronger than I ever was. Fly high. Love, Mom. Zara closed the laptop, touched her mother's pendant, whispered thank you to the empty room, and somewhere in the digital infrastructure of American aviation, a system built by a brilliant black woman and activated by her brave black daughter, hummed quietly, protecting passengers who would never know how close they'd come to being Carol Bennett's next victim. The system worked. Finally, because Zara Kingston had refused to stay silent. 3 months after the signing ceremony, Zara sat in her 8th grade classroom trying to focus on algebraic equations while her phone buzzed with death threats. The first one had arrived at 6:23 a.m., anonymous email routed through servers in countries she couldn't pronounce. You ruined my career. I know where you live. Watch your back. She'd shown it to her father over breakfast. Marcus had gone pale, then called his head of security, then pulled Zara out of school for the rest of the week. That was 2 weeks ago. Now there were armed guards outside their penthouse, cameras in every hallway, a panic button disguised as a charm on her backpack. Zara was 12 years old and living like a witness in protective custody. Her math teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, noticed her distraction. Zara, can you solve number 14? Zara looked at the board. X squared plus 7x minus 18. She could do this in her sleep. Had been doing calculus since she was 9, but her brain felt foggy, distant, like she was watching herself from somewhere far away. X equals -9 or 2, she said quietly. Correct. Are you feeling all right? I'm fine. She wasn't fine. Nobody at school talked to her anymore. Half the kids thought she was a hero. The other half thought she was a snitch who'd gotten a flight attendant sent to prison. Parents had complained to the principal. There'd been a petition to have her expelled for causing disruption. It had gotten 43 signatures before Marcus's lawyers shut it down with threats of discrimination lawsuits. Zara's best friend since kindergarten, Maya Chen, hadn't spoken to her in 6 weeks. Maya's mom was a flight attendant for United, and apparently the mandatory bias training was making everyone's life miserable. Maya had sent one text. My mom says you made everything harder for people just trying to do their jobs. Then silence. At lunch, Zara sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria, picking at a sandwich she wasn't hungry for. She'd learned to eat fast so she could leave before anyone said anything, before someone knocked her tray over, before someone stage-whispered racist, before someone took a picture and posted it with captions about entitled rich girls playing victim. Her phone buzzed again. Another email, this one with an attachment. She almost didn't open it, almost deleted it, and went back to pretending everything was normal. But something made her click. The attachment was a video, grainy security footage from an airport gate. A black woman in a business suit arguing with a gate agent, gesturing at her boarding pass, her voice rising. The gate agent calling security, the woman being escorted away while other passengers boarded. The timestamp was from yesterday. The airport was Dallas-Fort Worth. Below the video, a message. This is what happens when people like you make trouble. She got arrested, lost her job, all because she complained about discrimination. You didn't fix anything. You just made it worse. Zara's hands shook so hard she almost dropped the phone. She watched the video again, memorized the woman's face, the gate number, the airline logo visible in the corner. Then she forwarded it to Agent Victoria Chen with 3 words. This shouldn't happen. Chen called back in 7 minutes. Zara, where did you get this anonymous email? Probably someone trying to scare me. It's working, isn't it? Zara said nothing. Listen to me. Chen said, her voice steady. I'm already on this case. That woman's name is Danielle Roberts. She's a corporate attorney. The gate agent claimed she was being aggressive, but the full footage shows she was calm the entire time. We're investigating. The charges were dropped this morning. But she still got arrested, still got humiliated. Yes, because changing laws is faster than changing hearts. The system you created, it's working, but people are pushing back. They always do when they lose power. Chen paused. How are you holding up? I'm 12. I should be worried about homework and crushes and whether I'm going to make the robotics team. Instead, I'm getting death threats and watching videos of women getting arrested for complaining about the same thing that happened to me. I know, and I'm sorry. But you started something important. Don't let them make you regret it. What if I do regret it? Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then you're human. Courage isn't feeling no fear, Zara. It's being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. Your mom knew that. She lived it every day. After school, Marcus picked Zara up himself, something he hadn't done since she was in elementary school. He drove in silence for 10 minutes before pulling over in a parking lot overlooking Lake Michigan. We need to talk, he said. Zara's stomach dropped. About what? About whether this is sustainable, the threats, the isolation, the pressure. Marcus turned to face her, and Zara saw something she'd never seen in her father's eyes before. Fear. Baby girl, I am so proud of what you did, but I'm terrified of what it's costing you. You're 12. You should be living your life, not dodging death threats and testifying before Congress. So what are you saying that I should stop? I'm saying we could disappear, move to another country, change our names, let someone else carry this fight. Zara stared at him. You want to run? I want you safe. Mom didn't run. They threatened her for years, tried to destroy her career, steal her research. She kept fighting. And she died, Zara. Marcus's voice cracked. She died because she wouldn't back down, and I can't lose you too. I can't watch you destroy yourself trying to save a world that doesn't want to be saved. Zara felt tears burn her eyes. If we run, everything she died for means nothing. Everything I did means nothing. Carol Bennett wins. The airlines win. Everyone who's ever been treated like they don't belong, they just keep suffering. They'll suffer anyway. You can't save everyone. But I can try? Isn't that what you taught me? Isn't that what Mom believed? Marcus closed his eyes. Your mom believed in a lot of things that got her killed. And you're going to dishonor her memory because you're scared. Don't you dare. Marcus's voice went cold. Don't you dare accuse me of dishonoring your mother. I loved her more than anything in this world. I would have died in her place if I could. But she's gone, and you're all I have left, and I will not watch you follow her into an early grave because you inherited her stubborn need to fix everything. They sat in silence, the weight of grief and fear pressing down like gravity. Finally, Zara spoke, her voice small. I'm scared too, Dad. Every day, every email, every time someone looks at me wrong at school. But if I stop now, if I hide, then I'm telling everyone who's counting on me that they're not worth the risk. And I can't do that. I can't be that person. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. You're 12. I know. But I'm also Mom's daughter, and your daughter, and the girl who shut down 152 airports because someone hurt me and nobody cared. I can't unbe that person. So either you help me or you don't, but I'm not running. Marcus looked at his daughter, this fierce, brilliant, breakable child who somehow carried the weight of her mother's legacy without buckling. Your mom would be so damn proud, and so furious at me for even suggesting we quit. She'd probably hit you with a physics textbook." Marcus laughed despite himself. "Probably. Okay, we stay, we fight, but we do it smart. Better security, media training, and therapy, Zara. Real therapy. You don't get to carry this alone." "Deal." That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She lay in bed scrolling through social media, watching her life become a hashtag justice. For Zara had 17 million posts. Hashtag Carol Bennett was right had 3 million. The internet had taken her story and turned it into a battleground where strangers fought about race and privilege and whether a 12-year-old had the right to destroy careers. One post caught her attention. A long thread from someone claiming to be Carol Bennett's daughter. "My mom isn't a monster. She made a mistake. One mistake. And you people destroyed her life. She can't get a job, can't leave her house, gets death threats every day, all because a rich kid wanted attention. You don't know what you did to my family." Zara read it 3 times. Then she did something probably stupid. She sent a direct message. "I'm sorry about what happened to your family. I didn't want anyone to get death threats. I just wanted people to stop treating passengers like me as if we don't belong. Your mom hurt me, she broke my ribs, but I never wanted her to suffer like this." The response came fast. "You're a liar. You wanted her destroyed. You got what you wanted. Stay away from my family." Zara closed the app feeling sick. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe she couldn't fix this. Maybe some broken things stayed broken. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello, Zara Kingston." The voice was female, older, uncertain. "Yes." "My name is Janet Morrison. I'm a flight attendant for Delta. I've been flying for 32 years. A pause. "I'm calling because I need to tell you something I should have said months ago." Zara sat up. "Okay." "I was on a flight last year, Phoenix to Atlanta. There was a little boy, maybe 8 years old, Latino kid traveling alone, sitting in first class. My colleague, another attendant, she moved him to economy, said his ticket must have been an error. I knew it wasn't. I saw the manifest, diamond status, full price ticket. But I said nothing, just like everyone on your flight said nothing, because it was easier." Zara's throat tightened. "That little boy cried the whole flight," Janet continued, her voice breaking. "And I served champagne to the passengers in first class and pretended I didn't see him, pretended it wasn't my responsibility. When I saw what happened to you, saw you activate Skyguard, I wanted to hate you. Wanted to blame you for making my job harder, for the training, for the scrutiny. But the truth is, you held up a mirror, and I didn't like what I saw." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I went through the new bias training, really went through it, not just checked the boxes. And I found that little boy's name in the system, Miguel Santos. I tracked down his mother, called her, apologized. She cried. I cried. She told me Miguel stopped wanting to fly after that, said planes made him feel small." Janet's breath hitched. "You didn't make things worse, Zara. You made them visible, and visibility hurts, but it's the only way anything changes. What happened to Miguel? His mom's bringing him to the airport next week. I'm going to meet them, going to walk him onto a plane myself, show him that someone sees him, that he belongs." A pause. "Thank you for making me uncomfortable enough to do the right thing." They talked for 20 more minutes. Janet told her about other flight attendants who were angry about the changes, and others who were relieved to finally have support for doing what they'd always known was right. She told Zara about the complaint system, how some gate agents were being investigated, how some were quitting rather than change. She told her the fight was long and messy and nowhere near over. "But it's happening," Janet said, "because of you. Don't let them make you forget that." When Zara hung up, she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Small, fragile, but real. 2 days later, the trial began. Carol Bennett versus the United States of America. Federal assault charges, civil rights violations. The courthouse steps were packed with protesters on both sides. Team Carol held signs saying she was just doing her job and stop criminalizing flight attendants. Team Zara held signs saying black children deserve dignity and justice for Zara. Zara wasn't there. Marcus had forbidden it, and for once she didn't argue. Instead, she watched the news coverage from home, watched Carol Bennett walk into the courthouse in a dark suit, head down, surrounded by lawyers. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Witnesses testified. Passengers from Flight 6847 took the stand, their shame on full display. The video of Carol dragging Zara played 17 times. Medical records of Zara's broken ribs were entered into evidence. Carol's history of complaints was dissected piece by piece. The defense argued she was following protocol, that she had reasonable suspicion, that Zara's response was disproportionate, vindictive, calculated to destroy a working-class woman's life. The prosecution argued she assaulted a child, that her suspicion was based on race, that the system Zara activated was legal, justified, and long overdue. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Carol Bennett collapsed in the courtroom. Her lawyers held her up while she sobbed. The judge set sentencing for 3 weeks out, but everyone knew what was coming. Prison time, felony record, life destroyed. Zara watched it on TV and felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just empty. Her phone rang. Agent Chen. "You okay?" Chen asked. "Should I be... I don't know, are you..." Zara thought about it. About Carol sobbing in court. About Miguel Santos afraid of planes. About her mom dead because airlines ignored her safety protocols. About the death threats still arriving daily. About Maya Chen refusing to speak to her. About the weight of being 12 and carrying the expectations of millions. "I don't know what I am anymore," Zara said honestly. "You're human. You're allowed to be complicated. What if I made everything worse? What if Carol Bennett's daughter is right? What if I destroyed someone's life for revenge and called it justice?" Chen was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something? Last week, a gate agent in Miami stopped a supervisor from removing a young Muslim woman from first class. The supervisor said she looked suspicious. The agent said she looked like she belonged, used the new protocol you created, filed a complaint. The supervisor was suspended pending investigation. The woman flew first class exactly like her ticket said. She had no idea any of this happened. So that woman didn't have to hurt, didn't have to break her ribs, didn't have to activate a global shutdown. Because you already did. You paid the price so she didn't have to. That's not revenge, Zara. That's sacrifice." After the call ended, Zara opened her laptop. She hadn't checked SkyGuard since transferring it to federal oversight, hadn't wanted to see the numbers, the complaints, the evidence of how broken everything had been. But now she logged in, used her backup credentials, pulled up the analytics. Since implementation, the system had received 47,000 complaints. 47,000 incidents of passengers being profiled, questioned, removed, discriminated against. Most were minor. Some were horrifying. All were documented. All were being investigated. Of those 47,000, 6,000 had resulted in disciplinary action. Gate agents fired, flight attendants suspended, supervisors demoted. The numbers were staggering. But there was another number. A number that made Zara's breath catch. 0 assaults of minors in first class since SkyGuard implementation. 0 children dragged from their seats. 0 broken ribs. Zara read it 3 times, then closed the laptop and cried. Not from sadness, from relief, from the crushing weight of knowing it had worked. The system was protecting people. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not everyone, but it was working. Her father found her 20 minutes later still crying and held her without asking questions, just held her while she shook with the accumulated stress of 3 months carrying a burden too heavy for anyone, let alone a 12-year-old. "I'm tired, Dad," she whispered. "I know, baby girl. But I can't stop. Not yet." "I know that, too." The next morning, Zara did something she'd been avoiding. She went back to school. No guards, no panic button. Just her backpack and her broken ribs that were finally starting to heal, and her determination to be 12 years old for at least 6 hours. Maya Chen was at her locker when Zara walked past. They made eye contact for the first time in 2 months. Zara waited for Maya to look away, to ignore her, to confirm that their friendship was another casualty of her choice to fight back. Instead, Maya spoke. Hey. My mom finished the bias training last week. Zara braced herself for anger. She said it was hard, really hard. Made her look at stuff she'd been ignoring for years. Made her cry twice. Maya paused. But then yesterday, she stopped another flight attendant from moving a kid. Used the new protocol. Filed a complaint. Came home and told me she felt like she'd finally done something right. Zara's throat closed up. My mom says to tell you thank you, Maya continued, and that your mom would be proud. And that I'm an idiot for not talking to you for 2 months because I was mad about changes that needed to happen anyway. You're not an idiot. Yeah, I am, but I'm an idiot who's sorry. Can we be friends again? Zara felt something break open in her chest. Yeah, we can be friends again. They hugged right there in the hallway, and Zara didn't care who saw, didn't care who judged, just held on to her best friend and felt 12 years old again. That afternoon, Zara got another call. This time from someone unexpected. Senator Patricia Nguyen from California. Zara, I have a proposition for you. The Aviation Dignity Act is working, but we need oversight. Real oversight from people who understand what passengers face. I'm forming a committee, young people, diverse backgrounds, real authority to review complaints and recommend policy changes. I want you to chair it. I'm 12. I'm aware. That's why I want you. Because you see things adults have trained themselves to ignore. What do you say? Zara thought about her mom, about the broken system, about 47,000 complaints and 0 assaulted children, about Carol Bennett in prison, and Miguel Santos finally willing to fly again. I say yes, but I have conditions. Senator Nguyen laughed. Of course you do. Go ahead. The committee has to have real power, not advisory, real authority to force changes. And it has to include people who've been hurt by the system, not just people who study it. Done. Anything else? Yeah, no cameras, no press. We do this work quietly. I'm tired of being a headline. Agreed. Welcome to the team, Zara. 3 weeks later, Carol Bennett stood before a judge for sentencing. The courtroom was packed again, but this time Zara was there. She sat in the back row with her father, hands folded, face neutral. The judge reviewed the case, the evidence, the guilty verdict. Then he looked at Carol. Ms. Bennett, you had power. Not much, but enough to hurt a child. You used that power not to serve, but to punish someone for existing in a space you didn't think they deserved. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And choices have consequences. He sentenced her to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years probation and mandatory community service, working with civil rights organizations. Carol's lawyer asked if she wanted to make a statement. She stood slowly, her face haggard, her eyes finding Zara in the back row. I don't expect forgiveness, Carol said, her voice hoarse. I don't deserve it. But I want to say for the record that I was wrong. I was wrong about Zara, wrong about my job, wrong about what I thought first class meant. I spent 17 years believing that some people belonged and others didn't. That belief broke a little girl's ribs. That belief destroyed my career. That belief deserved to be destroyed. She paused, tears streaming down her face. Zara Kingston is braver at 12 than I've been in 53 years of living. She did what I should have done. She stood up when I stayed silent. She demanded justice when I perpetuated injustice. I'm going to prison for what I did, and that's right. But when I get out, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure no other flight attendant makes the choice I made. That's my promise to Zara, to her mother, to everyone I hurt. Zara didn't respond, just nodded once. Acknowledgement, not forgiveness. Understanding, not absolution. They left the courthouse through a side exit, avoiding cameras. In the car, Marcus looked at his daughter. How do you feel? Zara thought about it, about the journey from seat 2B to this moment, about everything she'd lost and gained and learned. I feel like maybe justice is messy, like maybe there are no clean endings, but maybe that's okay. Your mom used to say something similar. She'd say the work is never finished, but that doesn't mean it's not worth doing. She was right, Marcus smiled. She usually was. That night, Zara opened her mother's journal one last time, found the entry from 3 weeks before the crash, the one she'd read 100 times but never quite understood until now. They'll ignore you until they can't. They'll fight you until it costs too much. They'll hate you until they realize you were right. And even then, some will never admit it. But you do the work anyway. Not for recognition, not for gratitude, but because someone has to. Because silence is compliance. Because the world only changes when someone refuses to accept that this is just how things are. Be that someone, baby girl, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Zara closed the journal, touched her mother's pendant, whispered into the darkness. I'm trying, Mom. It hurts like hell. But I'm trying. And somewhere in the architecture of American aviation, a system hummed quietly, protecting passengers who would never know they were protected. 47,000 complaints becoming 47,000 chances for justice. 0 assaulted children becoming 0 more families broken by discrimination. The work wasn't finished. It never would be. But Zara Kingston had proven something her mother always believed: one person armed with courage and conviction and code could move mountains, even if that person was only 12 years old. 1 year after the trial, Zara stood in the airport terminal at O'Hare International, the same airport where everything had started, and felt her hands shake. She was 13 now, taller by 3 inches, her ribs fully healed but still tender when the weather changed. Marcus stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder, a silent anchor. "You don't have to do this," he said for the 3rd time that morning. "Yes, I do." And they were flying to New York, first class, seat 2B, the same seat Carol Bennett had dragged her from exactly 1 year ago. Zara had requested it, specifically had waited for this anniversary date, had spent 3 weeks working up the courage to walk back into the place where her life had fractured and reformed into something she still didn't fully recognize. The gate agent scanning boarding passes was young, maybe 25, and when she saw Zara's name on the screen, her eyes widened. "You're Zara Kingston." "Yes, ma'am." The agent looked at her for a long moment, then did something unexpected. She stood up, came around the desk, and held out her hand. "Thank you. My little sister is 10. She's black. She flies alone sometimes to visit our dad. Because of you, because of what you did, nobody questions her ticket anymore. Nobody makes her prove she belongs. So thank you." Zara shook her hand throat tight. "What's your sister's name?" "Amara. We named her after your mom." Zara's eyes filled with tears. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. The gate agent smiled, returned to her desk, and waved them through with a kindness that felt like absolution. Walking down the jetway felt like moving through water. Every step was heavy with memory. The recycled air smelled the same. The carpet had the same industrial pattern. But when Zara stepped onto the plane and saw seat 2B, something inside her chest unlocked. A flight attendant approached. Her name tag read Janet Morrison, the woman who'd called Zara months ago, the woman who'd tracked down Miguel Santos and apologized. "Welcome aboard, Zara," Janet said gently. "It's an honor to have you. You're working this flight. I requested it. Wanted to make sure your first time back was with someone who understands." Janet's eyes were kind, certain. "Your seat is ready, and I promise you nobody's moving you anywhere." Zara sat down in 2B, and Marcus took 2A beside her. The leather felt the same under her hands. The window showed the same tarmac. But everything was different because she was different, because the world was different, because 47,000 complaints had become 47,000 moments of accountability. As the plane filled, Zara watched passengers board. A little black boy, maybe 9 years old, walked past holding his mother's hand. He was heading to first class row 1. Nobody questioned him. Nobody even glanced twice. He sat down, pulled out a tablet, and started playing a game like it was the most normal thing in the world. Because now it was. The flight was uneventful. Smooth, takeoff, gentle turbulence, professional service. Janet checked on them twice, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. When they landed at JFK, Zara realized she'd spent 3 hours in seat 2B without a single moment of fear. Just peace. At baggage claim, a woman approached. Mid-40s, professional suit, careful smile. Zara Kingston. Zara's security instincts kicked in. Marcus stepped closer. "Who's asking?" "My name is Danielle Roberts. I'm the woman from the video, the one who got arrested at Dallas-Fort Worth." Recognition hit. The corporate attorney who'd been dragged away by security. The video someone had sent to terrorize Zara months ago. "I remember. I wanted to thank you. The charges were dropped, the gate agent was fired, and I just got promoted to senior partner at my firm partially because of the press coverage of my case. Your system worked. It protected me even though I didn't know I needed protection." Danielle held out her hand. "So thank you, from everyone who doesn't have to fight alone anymore." They shook hands, and Zara felt something shift. This wasn't just about her anymore. It had never been just about her. It was about every Danielle, every Miguel, every Amara who deserved to fly without fear. The Youth Aviation Oversight Committee met for the first time in a conference room in Washington, D.C. 15 young people ages 12 to 19 from every demographic the aviation industry had failed. Black kids, Latino kids, Asian kids, Muslim kids, kids with disabilities, kids who'd been questioned, moved, humiliated, ignored. Senator Nguyen opened the meeting. "Welcome to the first session of the YAOC. You have real power here, real authority. The airlines are required by federal law to respond to your recommendations within 30 days. Use that power wisely." Zara sat at the head of the table, the youngest committee chair in federal history, and looked at 14 faces that mirrored her own experience. "Let's start with introductions. Tell us your name and why you're here." A girl named Jasmine, 16, spoke first. "I'm here because a TSA agent pulled me out of line for extra screening 6 times in 1 year. Every time I wore a hijab. Every time they found nothing. Every time they made me miss my flight. I'm here to make sure that stops." A boy named David, 14, went next. "I'm here because I use a wheelchair. Airlines damaged my chair 4 times. 4 times they told me it wasn't their responsibility. 4 times I had to wait days for repairs. I'm here because disabled passengers deserve better." One by one, they shared their stories. Each one a variation on the same theme: power wielded carelessly, dignity stolen, routinely complaints ignored systematically. By the time they finished, Zara understood something profound. She wasn't special. She was just the one who'd had the tools to fight back. Everyone at this table had been hurt. She'd just been hurt with a quantum encryption key in her pocket. "Here's what we're going to do," Zara said. "We're going to review every complaint in the system, all 47,000. We're going to identify patterns, find the worst offenders, recommend policy changes, and we're not going to stop until flying feels safe for everyone in this room." Agreed. 14 voices said yes. They worked for 6 months, 12-hour days during school breaks, video conferences every weekend, reviewing complaints until the words blurred together. But slowly, carefully, they built something powerful, a comprehensive reform package backed by data testimony and the moral authority of young people who refused to accept that discrimination was just the cost of flying. Their first major recommendation targeted TSA screening procedures. Too many kids like Jasmine were being profiled. The committee proposed randomized screening protocols, mandatory bias training for TSA agents, and a public dashboard showing screening statistics by demographic. The TSA fought it for 3 weeks, then capitulated when the data showed they were screening Muslim passengers at rates 400% higher than average. The second recommendation addressed disability accommodations. David led this effort, documenting hundreds of cases of damaged wheelchairs, lost medical equipment, and airlines charging disabled passengers for basic accommodations. The committee demanded free equipment protection, mandatory training for ground crews, and financial penalties for damages. The airlines screamed about costs until the committee released a report showing they'd paid more in settlements than the reforms would cost. The reforms passed. The third recommendation was Zara's: mandatory de-escalation training for all customer-facing airline employees, modeled after police reform efforts. Too many incidents escalated because employees didn't know how to handle conflict without calling security. The committee proposed training programs, mental health support for employees, and alternatives to law enforcement for non-criminal issues. The pushback was fierce. Flight attendant unions called it coddling bad behavior. But when the committee released videos of passengers being arrested for asking questions for complaining about service for existing while Black or brown or Muslim public opinion shifted fast, all three recommendations became federal requirements within 8 months. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Zara was home doing homework when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, still wary after months of death threats. But something made her pick up. Hello. Zara Kingston. The voice was female, shaking, barely holding together. Yes. This is Carol Bennett. Zara's blood went cold. Carol was supposed to be in federal prison. Wasn't supposed to have phone access, wasn't supposed to be able to contact her. How did you get this number? I have supervised phone privileges. I got your number from my lawyer. I know I'm not supposed to contact you. I know this violates the restraining order. But I need to say something, and if I don't say it now, I never will. Zara should have hung up, should have called her father, her lawyers, Agent Chen. Instead, she said, I'm listening. Carol's breath hitched. I've been in prison for 9 months. 9 months of therapy, accountability groups, facing what I did, and I finally understand something. I didn't hurt you because you were in the wrong seat. I hurt you because your existence in that seat challenged everything I believed about who deserves power, who deserves comfort, who deserves to take up space in the world. Zara said nothing. I spent 17 years as a flight attendant telling myself I was just enforcing standards. Carol continued. But the standards were racist. The enforcement was racist. I was racist. And I broke a little girl's ribs because I couldn't handle the cognitive dissonance of a Black child sitting where I thought only white adults belonged. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to hear it. Not an apology, not an excuse, just the truth. I hurt you because of who you are. And that's unforgivable. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make sure no other flight attendant makes the same choice. Zara's hands were shaking. What does that mean? It means when I get out of here, I'm joining your committee's training program. I'm going to teach bias awareness to flight crews. I'm going to tell my story, show them what hate looks like when it wears a smile and a uniform. I'm going to make sure they understand that passengers like you aren't the problem. People like me are. You think that makes up for what you did? No, nothing makes up for it. But it's all I have. My career is over. My reputation is destroyed. My daughter won't speak to me. I can't undo the harm, but maybe I can prevent the next one. Zara closed her eyes, thought about her mother, about forgiveness versus accountability, about the difference between redemption and erasure. If you're serious about this, prove it. Not to me. To the next kid who gets questioned at the gate, to the next passenger who gets profiled. Do the work where nobody's watching, where there's no cameras or credit. Then maybe your words mean something. I will. I promise. Don't promise me. Promise the person you would have hurt if I hadn't stopped you. Carol was quiet for a long moment. I will. Thank you for listening. I didn't do it for you. I did it because my mom always said people can change if they're willing to face what they've done. Prove her right. Zara hung up, sat in silence for 10 minutes, then called Marcus and told him everything. How do you feel? He asked. I don't know. Angry that she called, surprised she meant it, confused about whether people who hurt you get to ask for forgiveness. They don't get to ask for anything, but you get to decide if you want to give it. I don't want to forgive her. Then don't. Forgiveness isn't required for healing. 6 months later, Zara turned 14. The committee had reviewed all 47,000 complaints, implemented 12 major policy changes, and reduced discrimination incidents by 63%. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't finished. But it was working. On her birthday, Zara received a package, no return address. Inside was a letter and a small wooden box. The letter was from Janet Morrison. Dear Zara, I wanted to give you something for your birthday, something that matters. Last week I flew with Miguel Santos again. He's 10 now. He sat in first class with his mom. He smiled the whole flight. He told me he wants to be a pilot when he grows up. Because of you, he believes the skies belong to him too. Inside this box is his drawing of what he wants his plane to look like. He asked me to give it to you. He says you're his hero. You're mine too. Thank you for making me brave enough to do the right thing. Happy birthday. Keep flying. Janet. Zara opened the box. Inside was a child's drawing of an airplane with rainbow wings and the words, Captain Miguel, written in careful letters. Below it, a note in a child's handwriting. Thank you for making planes safe for kids like me. You're the bravest person I know. Zara held the drawing and cried, not from sadness, from the overwhelming weight of knowing that her pain had created space for Miguel's joy, that her broken ribs had protected his whole spirit, that the system her mother built and she activated had given a 10-year-old boy permission to dream of flying. That night, her father took her to dinner at her favorite restaurant, just the two of them like old times. Over dessert, he pulled out an envelope. This came today, from MIT. Zara's heart stopped. I'm 14, I didn't even apply. They're offering you early admission, full scholarship, research position in their aerospace engineering program. They want you to continue your mother's work. Zara stared at the letter, at the logo that had been on her mother's office wall, at the opportunity to follow in footsteps that had been cut short too soon. What do I do? Whatever you want, baby girl. You've earned the right to choose your own path. Zara thought about it, about her mother's legacy, about the committee's work, about being 14 and carrying responsibilities that would crush most adults. I want to finish what we started. The committee, the reforms. Mom's system is working, but it needs oversight. It needs someone who understands why it matters. You can do both. MIT can wait. Or you can study part-time. Or you can go and keep doing committee work remotely. There's no wrong answer. What would Mom do? Marcus smiled sadly. Your mom would tell you to stop asking what she would do and start trusting what you know is right. Zara laughed, despite the tears in her eyes. That sounds like her. So what do you know is right? Zara looked at Miguel's drawing still clutched in her hand, at the rainbow wings and the careful letters, at the proof that her choice to fight back had given a child permission to soar. I know the work isn't finished. I know there are more Miguels out there, more kids who need someone to make sure the skies are safe. I know I'm tired, but I also know I'm the person who can do this. Not because I'm special, because I have the tools Mom left me and I'm not afraid to use them. Then that's your answer. 2 years later, Zara Kingston sat in the same Senate chamber where she'd testified at 12 years old, but this time she wasn't alone. The entire Youth Aviation Oversight Committee sat behind her 15 young people who'd transformed from victims into reformers. They were presenting their final comprehensive report to Congress, 200 pages, documenting every change, every success, every remaining challenge. Senator Nguyen called the session to order. Zara, the floor is yours. Zara stood. She was 16 now, poised and certain, carrying her mother's legacy and her own hard-won wisdom. 2 years ago, this committee was formed to address systemic discrimination in American aviation. We've reviewed 63,000 complaints, implemented 18 major policy reforms, reduced discrimination incidents by 78%, trained over 200,000 airline employees in bias awareness and de-escalation. We've changed laws, changed policies, changed hearts. She paused, looking at the senators, the press, the cameras broadcasting this moment to millions. But our work isn't finished. It will never be finished. Because systems don't stay fixed. They require constant maintenance, constant vigilance, constant willingness to call out injustice even when it's uncomfortable. That's what this committee does. That's what we'll keep doing. A senator raised his hand. Miss Kingston, you're 16 years old. You've accomplished more than most adults do in a lifetime. When does it end? When do you get to just be a kid? Zara smiled, sad and knowing. I stopped being just a kid the moment Carol Bennett broke my ribs and 40 people watched without helping. But here's what I've learned. Being a kid doesn't mean being powerless. It means seeing injustice with fresh eyes. It means refusing to accept that this is just how things are. It means using whatever tools you have to make the world better, even if those tools are just your voice and your courage and a quantum encryption key your mom left you. The room was silent. I'm not asking for permission to stop being a kid, Zara continued. I'm asking adults to start being braver, to stop looking away when someone gets hurt, to stop prioritizing comfort over justice, to stop making kids like me carry the weight of fixing systems adults broke. We'll keep doing this work, but we shouldn't have to do it alone. The Senate voted unanimously to make the Youth Aviation Oversight Committee permanent with federal funding and expanded authority. The bill was signed into law 3 weeks later. The Amara Kingston Memorial Act, named after the woman who'd built the system and the legacy that made it possible. On the day of the signing, Zara stood with her father in the Rose Garden. The president handed her the pen, just like last time. But this time, she handed it to David, the boy in the wheelchair, who'd led the disability accommodations reform. This isn't my victory, Zara said. It's ours, all of us, everyone who refused to stay silent. That night, Zara flew home to Chicago. First-class seat 2B, the seat that had become a symbol of everything she'd fought for. Janet Morrison was working the flight again, and she greeted Zara with a hug. How does it feel? Janet asked. Changing the world before you're old enough to vote? Zara thought about it. About the journey from broken ribs to federal legislation. About Carol Bennett in prison and Miguel Santos dreaming of flight. About her mother's legacy living in lines of code and reformed hearts. About being 16 and exhausted and proud and scared and certain all at once. It feels like I did what Mom couldn't finish. Like I turned her death into something that protects life. Like maybe pain has purpose if you're brave enough to transform it. She paused. But mostly, it feels like I want to go home, do my homework, and be a teenager for a few hours. Janet laughed. You've earned it. But Zara, thank you for all of it, for making me better, for making us all better. The plane took off, climbing through clouds into clear sky. Zara looked out the window at the world below, small and vast, and full of people trying to get from one place to another with dignity intact. Because of her, because of her mother, because of everyone who'd chosen courage over comfort, that journey was safer now. Not perfect, never perfect, but better, and better was enough. Zara pulled out her phone, opened her notes app, and started typing. Not a complaint, not a reform proposal, just words, personal words. A letter to her mother that she'd never send but needed to write. Dear Mom, I did it. I finished what you started. The skies are safer now. Kids like me can fly without fear. Your system works. Your legacy lives. And I finally understand what you meant when you said courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the refusal to let fear choose for you. I was terrified every step of the way. I'm still terrified sometimes, but I chose to fight anyway, just like you taught me. I hope you're proud. I hope you're watching. I hope you know that your death wasn't meaningless, that it sparked changes that will protect thousands of people you'll never meet. I love you. I miss you. And I promise I'll keep making you proud. Your daughter, Zara. She saved the note, closed her eyes, and felt her mother's presence in the hum of the engines, the safety of the system, the protection of the reforms. Dr. Amara Kingston had died trying to make aviation safer. Her daughter had succeeded. And in airports across America, children boarded planes without fear, sat in seats they'd paid for, without question, flew through skies their parents couldn't have safely navigated, all because one 12-year-old girl had refused to accept that broken ribs were just the cost of being black in first class. The work wasn't finished. It never would be. But Zara Kingston had proven something that would echo through generations. One person armed with courage, and her mother's code could transform grief into justice, pain, into protection, and silence into a roar that shook the foundations of an industry and rebuilt it stronger. She'd been 12 years old with broken ribs and a quantum key. Now she was 16 with healed bones and a legacy of her own. The journey between those two moments had cost everything and given her purpose she'd carry for life. And when the plane landed, when Zara walked off carrying her backpack and her mother's pendant and the weight of changes that would outlive them both, she knew exactly what she'd tell the next child who got questioned at a gate, the next passenger who got profiled, the next person who wondered if speaking up was worth the cost. She'd tell them what her mother had taught her, what Carol Bennett had learned too late, what 47,000 complaints had proven beyond doubt. Your voice matters, your dignity is non-negotiable, and the system only stays broken if good people choose silence over the hard, necessary work of demanding better. Zara Kingston had demanded better, and the skies had answered.